When I first arrived in Vietnam in 1990, I was a young photographer just starting my career. Little did I know that this was the start of a deeply emotional relationship with a fascinating country. There is something that happens almost by magic when I'm in Vietnam. It's what the Vietnamese call duyên, or fate. Why I'm blessed with this remains a beautiful mystery. On those early trips in the 90s, there were people I met that could not have just been random meetings. General Giap, the woman on the train, a girl who zipped by me on a motorbike in Hanoi. Our astonishing reunions and enduring friendships are clear signs of destiny. Vietnam. This is the country where I feel most alive and my best self. I think this is because of the Vietnamese spirit of generosity and forgiveness. Their true desire to be friends, to connect and to share and to be close. This is what my images are really about.
Hello and welcome to Talk Vietnam. Vietnam is an incredible country in many ways, utterly fascinating in its enigmas, contradictions, hardships, beauty, kindness, mystery, all of it. This is how our guest today feels about Vietnam in her very own way. National Geographic photojournalist Karnow has spent the last 30 years documenting a changing Vietnam. On that journey, she finds herself so attached to this country by fate, or duyên, as it is said in Vietnamese. Let's talk with Catherine and find out more about how duyên has kept her so close to Vietnam over the years and made her feel such a strong sense of belonging. Hi, welcome to Talk Vietnam, Catherine.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here and so honored. Thank you.
So let's go back to the very beginning of your journey of documenting Vietnam over the last 30 years. When did you first come here and what brought you here?
I was born and grew up in Hong Kong in the 1960s. At the time, my father was a reporter for the Washington Post and for Time Life, and he covered Vietnam as a journalist. And then in 1990, my father and both my mother actually as well came to Hanoi to interview General Giap for the New York Times Magazine.
Yeah.
And when my parents returned, my mother told me she was kind of mad that I hadn't been the photographer on that assignment. So I started to think about maybe I should get myself into gear being a professional photographer.
Yeah.
And shortly after that, I was in Sydney. I met a Vietnamese fellow and he said, I'm going to be going back to Vietnam in July. Would you like to come with me? And at the same time, a photographer mentor of mine was urging me to start my life as a professional photographer. So all these things converged to be the perfect timing for me to come to Vietnam. And the story does begin with my father, although I do have to add that my mother had lived in Saigon in the 1950s during Dien Bien Phu.
Wow.
Actually.
Yeah.
Actually, in January of 2013, my father died.
Yeah.
And I was in Saigon at the time. I was staying in the house of some friends. They were away, and I was all alone. It was almost midnight. And I got the news from my brother, who sent me an email that simply said, "Call me, please." And although my father had not been ill at all, I suddenly knew. I just knew. And I sat there very quietly, and I knew that it was perfectly right. I knew that it was meant to be, that I was in Vietnam. It seemed perfectly right for me to be by myself, in the quiet, just to think and feel those moments.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear that your father died in 2013, but you were still continuing his legacy.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that he's proud of you.
Thank you.
what kept you coming back to Vietnam after that very first trip?
I still to this day wonder why it is that Vietnam has something familiar feeling to me that is more than just, oh, I've come to know this place. I think that from that very first trip, I sensed this sort of enigma of belonging.
Yeah.
And I came back many times in the 90s, and the more I came back, the more I wanted to come back.
So do you think because of that, some of the best photographs of you were taken during this time in Vietnam?
I would say that certainly right up until today, and I've taken how many thousands and thousands and thousands of photographs over a 30, 40-year career now, that still my favorite photographs were taken on those first trips. One of my favorite photographs is the fishing boat in Ha Long Bay. The photograph that I took of the fishing boat in 1995 resonates so deeply with me because it's beautiful, and you can see the fisherman. He's struggling to pull the boat through the waters by hand. He had to row for 4 to 5 hours to get out to where the fish were plentiful in the bay. And so just that small figure of the fisherman, to me, sums up the resilience, the perseverance of the Vietnamese, of the Vietnamese character.
You wrote about your special relationship with General Võ Nguyên Giap's family in your book. So how special is it? Can you explain more about it?
In October of 2013, General Giap, he died. I got the news. I immediately contacted the family, and I expressed, of course, my deepest condolences. And I asked if it would be appropriate for me to come, and they said, "We invite you, in fact, to come." And so I got on a plane and I came straight to Hanoi. And I went immediately to the family home at 30 Hoang Xie. And there I saw, I don't know how many, couple hundred people lining up late into the night to process through one by one, come in, come into the altar room, pay their respects. And then the next day, I believe it was, we flew to Quang Binh. And as we went through the streets of Quang Binh and I was in a bus with family members, I looked out the window and I couldn't believe that I was seeing these villagers holding up my photograph of the general. A simple photograph that I had taken in 1991, and I knew then that I had not only a place of acceptance in Vietnam, but that I actually had a place of belonging. It was one of the most powerful moments of my life to see that. Hi. How are you? So good to see you. Hi. Hi. Nice to see you. Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
You just came yesterday?
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much.
At first, we go to burn incense for my father. Okay? Let's put shoes off. mọi người trong nhà ấy thì từ lúc ông còn sống cũng như khi ông mất ấy, thì cũng giống ông và bà coi cô ấy là như người thân trong gia đình. Cả bố cô ấy, cả cô ấy là tiếng Pháp cũng rất là giỏi. Thế thì thường đến gặp ông bà thì toàn nói chuyện tiếng Pháp. Thế mà cũng cảm thấy cô có cái gần gũi cũng như là người Việt Nam mình ấy. 1994.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's her.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember we took this.
Yeah, well, I dug these up. Vous avez un air merveilleux.
Ah oui,
Très, très, très vivante.
merci beaucoup. Con đây hả?
So now I want to talk about your very famous photo, Women on the Train, published countless times around the world. Where and when did you take it?
So, on that first trip in 1990, I took the Saigon-Hanoi train, also called the Reunification Express. And it was in July, it was so hot, the train seemed to be going so slowly, and I would just walk up and down the train looking for scenes, looking for situations. And I came into this compartment where I came upon this beautiful woman. Mm-hmm. And because I didn't have a translator to help me, we just kind of communicated with gesture, and I asked if I could take her photograph her, and she was fine with that. She was with some children. So at a certain point, we started to climb the Hai Van Pass in central Vietnam. And I knew it would be a good photograph just visually, because finally, because we were curving, you could see the rest of the train behind. We climbed and we got to the top. And then, as the train started to come down, finally, for the first time in days, it picked up speed. And we all felt this breeze. And there was such a sense of joy and happiness. We could finally breathe.
Yeah.
And that's when this photograph came about. So it was on the Lonely Planet Guide to Vietnam for many years. In fact, you can see the whole photograph here, although it looks like they've reversed the photograph.
Oh, yeah.
I always wanted to share the success of this photograph, been published so many times, with the woman on the train, but I didn't know how to contact her. One day in 2010, there was a story about me, so my name was in the story, and they published this photograph. And immediately, I got a message on Facebook.
Wow.
And the message said, my name is Rosalind Vu, and the photograph of the woman on the train, that's my mother.
Wow.
So finally, in 2011,
Yeah.
I was back in Hanoi and we reunited. We hadn't seen each other in many years,
Yeah.
so many years.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I like to think that it is a kind of a duyên. I think that it's so beautiful, and it gives me such a sense of peace, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are for you. Thank you. Just like you. Thank you.
Beautiful flowers, warm smiles,
Hey, Rosalind, look at you. Hi.
tight hugs,
Oh my goodness. Wow. You look lovely.
and giggles all go together when flipping through the photos. That's how Trần Thị Điệp and photographer Catherine Karnow welcome each other every time they meet when Catherine visits Vietnam. Their predestined relationship began 30 years ago on the reunification train.
Năm 90 tôi đi công tác cùng với đoàn Sở Y tế Đường sắt vào trong Đà Lạt trên chuyến tàu, và sau khi công tác về xong thì trên chuyến tàu đi về thì tôi gặp Catherine, và tôi đang ngồi cùng với bọn trẻ con ở trong một cái khoang giường nằm. Thì có người nước ngoài quan lúc giờ chưa biết Catherine đâu, nhưng mà cô mới ra hiệu, cô không có ra hiệu là xin chụp ảnh cùng với lại bản thân mình với lại trẻ con. Họ thấy rất là ngạc nhiên, tại vì mình là rất là nhiều, là một trong rất là nhiều người ngồi ở trên tàu đấy.
Diệp could never ever imagine that her picture would become the cover of The Lonely Planet's book, one of the most well-known travel guide books in the world. Over the years, this photo ended up being published countless times and remained as the cover of the Lonely Planet guide for years. However, Diệp didn't have a chance to learn anything about the photographer she had met on the train. Only 20 years later, Diệp coincidentally learned the name of the photographer.
Bác hàng xóm này, bác đặt cái báo Tuổi Trẻ. Thế mà sang đấy thì bác bảo ô có cô Diệp ở đây này. Lúc bây giờ mới biết là tên là Catherine. Thế thì Phương Thảo này mới liên qua mạng xã hội thì bạn ấy mới liên hệ với cô ấy.
I think that maybe she got messages like this from strangers all the time, so maybe there's a chance that she will reply. And then when I sent her the message, I think it was the next day that she replied, and Catherine was very happy to find it, but she wants to just to make sure that it's the same person. So I sent her a picture of me and my mother. And then October, her friend happened to come here, and also we took pictures of my mother and me holding the photos that Catherine gave us.
Yeah, since you keep talking. Yeah.
Since that day, Catherine Karnow has visited Diep's family 6 times. Along with taking more photos, a special friendship has grown between them over time.
I love this because it's totally set up. Because I'm going to show you this picture in a minute.
You guys are going to laugh. Oh,
Beautiful.
okay, good.
Catherine là người Mỹ nhưng rất là cái tính cách giống như người Á Đông của mình, rất là hay xúc động, hay cảm động và tình cảm. Cô rất là vui khi mà đến với gia đình nhà này mà cảm thấy là giống như đến gia đình nhà mình vậy.
Catherine has never missed an important event of Diep's family. One of those events was the wedding of Phương Thảo, Diep's daughter, in 2018.
The night before the wedding, she actually came here to my home and offered to take photos of my wedding. Even though we hired photographers, but it feels really special to have a friend who have known us for years.
During this visit, Catherine continued taking pictures, marking another milestone in the life of Phương Thảo. It was pictures of Thảo as a happy-to-be mother and her husband. They are both expecting their first baby.
When we get together, we giggle and laugh about the same things. And so Duyên might have brought us all together, but who would have thought that over the years we would actually just enjoy each other's company and like the same things, discover all these similarities, and sort of see the world in the same way.
I know that in 1995, you were on assignment in Hanoi with taking photo for the Smithsonian magazine, and you encountered an unbelievable story. So can you share more about this?
So yes, my father was actually the writer for a story on New Vietnam, once again in 1995, and I was the photographer, and I was on the lookout for a cover shot. I knew that I wanted for the cover a beautiful Vietnamese woman. And I didn't want to hire a model. I wanted a real person. And I was just kind of on the lookout, just looking out. And one day I was on the back of a motorcycle, as how I got around, and all of a sudden this motorcycle zips by, this girl is driving, and I was like, oh my God, this woman is beautiful. Let's go ask her, let's go talk to her, let's go see if she wants to be on the cover. And my assistant was driving, and she sped up, and we pulled up alongside, and she looked over, and we said, can we talk to you? And she said, I'm late for work, you have to follow me, I'm gonna have to late for work. So we followed her, and she worked at the foot of the water tower. She was selling plastic things, and she was late, and she had to get all set up, and basically I just explained what we were doing, and I said, could we arrange a photo shoot in the next couple days? Would you agree to be photographed? And she said, okay, sure. And I remember thinking she should probably wear the same áo dài, it looks beautiful on her, and so on. And so we met a couple days later, and I decided we should do the photograph. There's the street in front of the Metropole because there's beautiful architecture behind, and that's where we would do it. And we went to the flower market first to get some flowers for the photograph, and I remember she said we should get lotuses because they're important to Vietnam. And even when we were just in the flower market, I couldn't stop photographing her, even though this wasn't the photograph I was supposed to be taking, but I was just dazzled by her beauty, which was radiating from inside out. And then we did the cover shot, and the exact photograph that I had in mind, in my head, that is exactly what made the cover.
And then many years later, you became friends?
What happened was that in 1999, I found myself back in Hanoi again, and I wanted to find her. So I had a little card that she herself had written her name and address on. And together with a couple of college students, American college students who were on a study abroad program, we went to find her. In fact, I had sent her a copy of the magazine and some photographs. But I also had a copy of the magazine with me, and we started to ask people as we got closer to the address, we're trying to find her, we're trying to find her. And finally we came to her house, but it was in fact her mother's house. And then they went and found her, rushed to find her, and she came running down the street with a little girl wearing her pajamas still, and we had this beautiful reunion in 1999. Oh my God!
Xin chào. Tôi nhớ bạn.
Let's hug him here again. Oh, I'm coming here.
Catherine made by herself a paper flower and attached it onto the box containing the photos she had taken of Han Minh-thu back in 1995. Some of these photos Thu had never seen before.
It was when that I saw you. I mean, I saw your beauty flash by, but I don't know how much I could realize through all the years how much Duyên played into our photography, our friendship, our relationship. It's a mystery to me.
After 24 years, Catherine still kept with her the note Thu wrote her name and address on. With this note, Catherine found Thu and they reunited for the first time in 1999.
Gặp lại cô ý như là người thân của mình ấy, mình rất là vui ấy, mình rất là cảm động. Cái thời điểm mà mình gặp cô ý thì hôm đấy là mình cũng rất là bận ấy, nhưng mà tại sao mình vẫn muốn nói chuyện với cô ý và muốn giúp cô ý ấy. Thì thực sự đấy là nhân duyên thứ nhất ấy. Nhân duyên thứ hai nữa rằng là sau 5 năm thì mình với cô ấy lại có cơ hội để gặp lại nhau ấy, và mình được nhận cái tấm hình mà cô ấy đã chụp cho mình. Và bây giờ thì đã 20 năm mà cô ấy vẫn nhớ đến mình, cô ấy muốn gặp mình ấy. Thực sự là đấy là một cái điều mà rất là đáng quý ấy. Và mình nghĩ rằng là không phải ai cũng có được cái hạnh phúc đấy như mình.
Since the day they reunited 20 years ago, the two friends have found out they share many things in common. They both love flowers. Thu gave Catherine the roses she planted and took care of by herself. Meanwhile, Catherine showed Thu photos of the flower pots she grows on her balcony back home in the US.
Mình muốn nói với cô ấy là hoa hồng thì rất là đẹp, nhưng mà đẹp hơn cả là cái tình bạn mình muốn gửi đến cô ấy. Bây giờ thì mình có lẽ là mình khẳng định được tình bạn đó đã mấy chục năm, không đơn giản chỉ là một người bạn đến thăm nhau, nó còn có một cái gì đấy sâu hơn thế nữa.
So now I want to talk about Agent Orange. Among the topics that you've covered in Vietnam, a big part is Agent Orange victims. And you once wrote that Agent Orange is a terrible legacy, and it is not something that happened in the past. It is still in the present. So what feelings do you usually go through when you encounter a victim of Agent Orange and know about his or her story?
I think that one of the most horrific legacies of the U.S. war in Vietnam is the story of Agent Orange. That the U.S. sprayed so many millions and millions of liters of poison over the country of Vietnam, knowing that it was harmful, is something that shocks me all the time. And I feel that as an American, that I have some sort of responsibility. When I see victims of Agent Orange, it's important to me as a photographer to photograph these people with dignity and with humanity. Mm-hmm. You know, there are so many photographs that you see of Agent Orange victims that show them just as deformed and shockingly twisted, and I just don't think that's right.
Yeah.
These are human beings, whatever kind of shape they're in. Mm-hmm. And I always photograph Agent Orange victims, showing them as human beings, because that's who they are.
Yeah.
And I have been photographing Agent Orange since 1990.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a topic that is very important right up until today. It's not the past at all, because the diseases associated with Agent Orange are passed down genetically. Mm-hmm. And so you have babies being born every single day today.
Yeah.
With these diseases.
Right.
Third generation, maybe even fourth generation now.
Võ Thị Nhâm is the mother of Tân Chí, 30, and Tân Hậu, 19. Both men were severely disabled. They cannot walk, and they had severe brain diseases. But the brothers remember Catherine especially, and they are delighted every time she visits and gives them presents.
Thấy thương cổ, cái hồi mua của qua Việt Nam là cổ cũng điện tới cổ tham, nên nhớ chứ còn anh qua anh tham rồi tới đây rồi cũng tới tham cái đi chứ không có nghĩ như cô đây thì mình thấy giống như cực chị ấy thì mỗi lần tới Việt Nam là cũng qua tham.
At the age of 59, Nhâm doesn't work. She only stays at home to look after her two sons. Her family struggles a lot. They can only rely on her husband's salary from his construction worker job. He was exposed to Agent Orange while serving in the army.
Trời biết hắn ở với mình là không biết bao nhiêu năm thì mình có còn sống là để nuôi hắn cho hắn hết cái cuộc đời của hắn không. Mình đi trước thì khổ cho hắn, mà hắn đi trước mình thì cũng tội.
For Catherine, her empathy for her special friends like Nhâm and the two sons is a great part among the reasons why she keeps coming back to Vietnam in the past 3 decades.
Cảm ơn cô nhiều nghe.
So is it the empathy for her and her sons help keep the friendship between you and her family growing over time?
Over the years, I visit with the Tan family as much as I can, and I always take time to sit down with Nhâm and to ask her how she's feeling, what does she need. At one point, a few years ago, she said, I need a boat. My family needs a boat. And I said, oh, okay, why do you need a boat? She said, because we live in a flood zone. And when it floods, the boys cannot just scramble to safety.
Yeah.
And so I immediately asked my father if he wanted to pitch in, and together, my father and I bought a boat for that family. And I've asked her a few times, I mean, have you used the boat? She said, oh yes, we've used it several times. And so I always ask her, how is she doing? And she always says the same thing. My greatest fear is that who will take care of my boys when my husband and I are too old to? And who will take care of me and my husband when we're too old? You know, when I'm at home and I close my eyes, I see her face and I hear her words about fearing for the future. And I'm trying to figure out how this particular family can be helped. And I'm trying to figure out a solution, not to just give them money, but a solution for who can take care of these boys, now young men, when they're 50 and 60 years old. What is the solution?
Yeah. And you are using photography as a way to help send out the message and raise the awareness about Agent Orange victims in Vietnam.
Yes.
Yeah. So can you share more about your exhibition in 2015?
My 2015 exhibition and book of the same name, Vietnam, 25 Years Documenting a Changing Country, that was one of the greatest moments of my life. It was the culmination of so many years of hard work and photography in Vietnam. You know, so much of my work has been self-assigned. And so many people had never seen some of these photographs. The opening was maybe the best day of my life. My brother came from California, best friends came from London, and I was so honored that Ambassador Ted Osius opened the exhibition with an impassioned speech in which he said that the greatest legacy that my father left were his children. I do believe that I'm carrying on my father's legacy in Vietnam. You know, he always said to me, Kathy, I'm so proud of you. Mm-hmm. I'm so proud that you're carrying on my legacy in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And of course, in turn, I'm so proud of my father. Mm-hmm. He worked so hard. He was such a great journalist. Mm-hmm. He was so dedicated to telling the truth, to telling stories evocatively. And he really changed the way America regarded Vietnam.
Catherine hosted several signature workshops in different parts of the world and in Vietnam. Some years ago, Catherine realized she really loved to share her knowledge to everyone. All these years of experience, not only as a photographer, but as somebody who grew up traveling, is what she brings into her workshops. The best thing about her workshops is the way she and her workshop guests connect with the people of the places whom they spend real time with. They sit down to listen to their stories to understand them better.
She has a connection to us, she has a connection to you, and to the people who live here, and it's a gift for us. So I see Vietnam in a way that I couldn't do it with anyone else.
Having joined Catherine's workshop in Italy in 2017 and liked it so much, Johnston did not miss the chance to register again when this workshop took place in Vietnam.
I think there are two different things that are important about her workshop. One is she is obviously a superb photographer and able to explain to people who are not very experienced photographers how to take better photographs. But she also really has a connection, deep connection to Vietnam. And so we're learning a lot about Vietnam as well as about photography. And that was something that I wanted to do and has been wonderful.
Laurie Doherty came to Vietnam for her honeymoon. This time, she decided to come back to Vietnam for an equally special purpose, to attend Catherine's workshop.
Vietnam is the part of the fabric of who Catherine is as a person. Vietnam, just in general, is part of the fabric of who I am right now. The people, to me, were so special. They're resilient, they're kind, they're loving. And I feel like I go back to Vietnam and I'd be able to walk into a room and hug the person and have the same relationship I did when I left. When we go anywhere with Catherine, there's just so much love and there's so much mutual respect. And she provides us with experiences that we never, ever would get from anybody else. And those experiences are incredibly special. It was absolutely a life-altering trip to me. I try to bring it into my day-to-day life every day.
You've conducted so many signature workshops in Vietnam, and with that, you help more people know more about Vietnam and the Vietnamese culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
In Vietnam, my workshops are especially important to me because it's a country that I love so much and spend so much time in. And my Vietnam workshop, where we also carry on to Cambodia, is a way to bring my guests into what we might say is my Vietnam. Mm-hmm. The Vietnam that I love, the people that I know, the people that I love, the art of Vietnam, the artists, the monks, as I mentioned, my special favorite places, mm-hmm. the old quarter, the fishing village in Hoi An. Gosh, it's a very, very special workshop.
Yeah.
And I think people come away with a beautiful image of Vietnam mm-hmm. that they can go out and then share with the people back home.
Yeah.
And so in a way we can say that we become ambassadors.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ambassadors to Vietnam, from Vietnam. Mm-hmm. I want people to fall in love with the Vietnam that I've fallen in love with.
So what does Vietnam mean to you now?
Each time I come to Vietnam, I'm so drawn in. It still is an enigma to me. How I get so pulled into the embrace of Vietnam. It's almost like Vietnam just puts its arms around me when I'm here. It does feel like home.
Yeah.
Not the kind of home that I want to move here, not where you live home, but where you belong home. It's like, because of all the years that have passed now, it's like when you love your family more and more because you've been with them for so many years now. It's like that. This has been my life. I have dedicated my life to working and photographing, mostly in Vietnam. And so I think I treasure this as a home just simply because, if for no other reason, because this has been over half my life at this point. And I think it's also because, you know, the Vietnamese people love their country. Despite hardships, despite this, that, and the other thing, the Vietnamese love their country. And so I think the Vietnamese so appreciate that I love Vietnam. And the Vietnamese are always saying to me, thank you for loving my country. And that makes me feel all the more in the embrace of the country.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for your beautiful story of your journey, 30 years documenting Vietnam. And we wish you all of the success for your future projects. And we hope that our country would keep you coming back. And we want to thank you for your love for Vietnam.
Thank you so much.
Well, once again, thank you very much for joining Talk Vietnam. And that's it for this edition of Talk Vietnam. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed it as much as I did. And until next time.